start this. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're here. Rabbi Joe, we're thrilled to have you back tonight, and happy birthday from all of us. I'm going to turn it right over to you, and you can introduce our guest tonight.
All right. Well, fantastic. Fantastic. Let's see. How do I make my screen bigger? Hold on here. There we go. Now I can see everybody. Beautiful. Tonight we are continuing our dialogue on Hinduism because Hinduism is too rich a system of thought and faith and wisdom to try and condense even into two. But here we are with a few different representatives, and I hope everybody else joins us and we will learn, I'm sure, a tremendous amount. I'm really looking forward to this evening. And I have a couple of friends on with us. We have Sri Ganesh. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. And Mac, I want you to also, you're a special character in this world, and your history is very interesting. So why don't we start with you, Sri Ganesh? Tell us a little about who you are, and then we'll get into the specifics after about all our faith traditions.
Hey, thank you and happy birthday, Rabbi Joe. Yeah, my name is Sriram Ganesh. Uh, I am located in Denver, Colorado. Um, I chant Vedas in the local Hindu temple here and also practice the Advaitic Hindu philosophy. I'm also teaching meditation and yoga. So that's not my full-time job, though. I am a technical architect in an IT firm. Very happy to be participating in this session today. Thank you all.
Right. And we
Thank you
will
for
get
being
into
here.
all of the terms that he mentioned uh, in the discussion. So not to worry about the foreign terms. All right, Brother Mohan, nice seeing you.
See you. I'm Mohan Sagar. I used to be a very long-term resident of Denver, Colorado, but now about 8 years ago moved out to a place called Allen, Texas, which is just about 35 miles north of Dallas. So I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I am a student and practitioner of the Sri Vaishnava tradition of Hinduism, and I participate as a one of the reciters of the Tamil hymns, the hymns in the Tamil language called the Divya Prabandhas in our local temple, where I'm pretty actively involved here. And I belong to a community of people who promote and practice the values spoken about in the Divya Prabandhams as taught to us by the philosopher Ramanuja.
Wonderful. And again, we will learn about Ramanuja as we proceed in our discussion. And let's see, Krishna, can you give us a little background, a little bio, a little hello from the car, or do you want to wait until
No, I can
you?
talk. I can talk
Okay,
hands
great.
free. So I like Mohan. I am a practitioner of the same school of thought, same tradition. And I've also been a long-term resident of Denver for Colorado, and then Denver for almost 20 years now. And I work as a senior researcher with the University of Colorado Department of Pediatrics, the Neuro-Onc division, working with pediatric brain tumors, trying to find treatments for them. And other than that, currently I am the liaison for interfaith with the temple at Castle Rock, the Sri Venkateswara Swami temple. And incidentally, Mohan Sagar was the liaison right before me. He's the one who introduced me to Rabbi Joe and to the interfaith programs. So since then, we've had some really nice conversations about philosophy and religion over time.
And
Whoops.
Thank you. I didn't
Thank
know where
you.
that was coming from.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you
And
all so much for being here. Yeah.
and we're having extra. Mohan is going to also be joining us in addition to Sri Ram and Krishna because he's a storehouse of knowledge that will add to our our understanding very beautifully. And Mac, since you're here, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background? And I mean some of the background before you became a devotee, because that's fascinating also. And your presence here is, I think, can also be very instructive for all. So give us a little background and where you are these days.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Rabbi Duca, and good to see you as always. Uh,
Explain
so,
the Rabbi Duca. Nobody's going to get that one.
we, Rabbi Joe and I, share an interest in suffering, and so alleviating suffering, I suppose. And so it's a joke nickname that we came up with. But my name is Mac. I'm joining you from the west coast of the United States today. I'm in Oregon. Um, and I have had the pleasure of knowing Rabbi Joe for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I think. And we connected through a mutual friend of ours and have had many wonderful conversations about spirituality and have learned countless things from him about what true commitment to spiritual practice means. I am a researcher and scholar. I have a couple of PhDs in various areas. I taught for 20 years in Colorado in Fort Collins at Colorado State University, where I taught courses in Buddhism and Hinduism, Vedic philosophy. Prior to that, I lived for 10 years as a monk in North India in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and for 2 years in Japan as a Zen Buddhist monk. Um, and during my time in Colorado, I had the great privilege of getting to know people at the Radha Govinda Temple and became a student of Bhakti Yoga and took refuge with a teacher in California with whom I still study. And um, anyway, that's a little bit about me, but thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, beautiful, beautiful.
Great to be
Now,
here.
let's, I thought we would first, how in your approaches, this is for everybody. If once we get specific, we'll focus more on the individual dynamics of each of our uh, Hindu faith representatives. But I'd like everybody, including you, Mac, how do you greet? I mean, we're all saying hello or we say shalom. How do you greet in if there is a difference in the Advaita world or in any of your faith communities? How do we greet one another? So let's start off just with you, Sri Ganesh. How do you
Yeah,
greet another person? And what is the deeper meaning within the terms that you're going to share with us?
yeah. So with the advent of yoga in the Western world, I'm pretty sure that many of us are familiar with the popular greeting, Namaste, right? Namaste means Namaha Te, the divinity in me bows down to the divinity in you all. So that's the typical Hindu greeting. Uh, Namaste. So namaste, everyone.
Namaste, Ji.
And
Namaste.
beautiful. Now, and I don't know, do you call them mudras, the hand positions, or is that Buddhist language
I mean,
already?
there are mudras, and this is especially called Anjali Mudra.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want to go much into detail, but there are like descriptions about how to place the Anjali Mudra, the two hands together to greet someone. You place it above your head if you are, to God and to like the acharyas. And you place it along the head for the teachers, and you place it, alongside your heart, at the line of your heart, to greet all the fellow human beings. So there are differences in how you do. So you don't greet when you see someone at the same level as you or another human being, you don't greet them with this. This is reserved for, worshiping God. And for the gurus, it's actually done from the face level, the head. So,
Beautiful.
yeah. And it's called Anjali Mudra. And depending on how you hold it, it symbolizes whether you are greeting or who you are greeting.
Mhm. And you mentioned acharyas, which we're going to hear a lot of tonight.
Yeah.
Would you briefly tell us what an acharya is, and also what does Anjali mean, the
So,
word
yeah,
itself?
Anjali itself is worship or offering.
Hmm.
And you are actually offering salutations. So that's what it means.
Beautiful.
That's the Sanskrit word Anjali. And coming back to your question about Acharya or Guru, uh, in Sanskrit, Guru is described as someone who dispels the darkness, basically, who removes the veil of ignorance, uh, and who gives you knowledge. And I'm pretty sure, steeped in the tradition of acharyas, Mohan and Krishna would be able to talk a lot about acharyas and their roles in Vishishtadvaitam that they follow.
Beautiful. Thank you. Mohan, is there anything that you would add to this?
Yeah, namaste is used in a general greeting for everyone to indicate that we are bowing to them, that the divinity in us is bowing to the divinity in you. In the followers of our faith, we have developed a language which is called Mani Pravalam, which is a mix of Sanskrit and Tamil. So when we greet each other, even when we greet our acharyas, there's a word called adiyen, which comes from a Tamil word called adime, which means being of service out of gratitude, that you're grateful for the opportunity to care for someone or to be hospitable to someone. So the word adiyen is used when I refer to myself before someone who is within our community. I will use the word adiyen, that I am at your service. I am happy to be of service to you. And we formalize it by adding the word Ramanuja and Dasan to it, Adiyen Ramanuja Dasan, which means that we are identifying ourselves, that one who is happy to serve you is Ramanuja's servant, Ramanuja's slave. So that's how we formally greet each other when we meet in our religious gatherings. We'll say Adiyen to each other, Adiyen Ramanuja Dasan to each other.
Now, the last word, is that in honor of your founder, your guru,
Right.
okay.
Ramanuja was uh, the biggest proponent, the revolutionary proponent of what we call as Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta, which is a form of Vedantic thinking like Advaita and Dvaita, which are three different forms of Vedantic thinking that were developed by three sets of scholars. So Ramanuja was a scholar who established Vishishta Advaita Vedanta.
Wonderful.
Yeah, well, Mac, being of the ISKCON tradition,
Right.
would be more oriented towards the Dvaita school of Matwa.
So speaking of Mac, how do you greet? We have a beautiful greeting in your tradition also. How does that manifest itself, and the symbolism behind the root, some of the root meanings behind the greeting?
I suppose if I was to meet, somebody at the temple, I might say just, greet them with Hare Krishna. just which is the root of our primary mantra. Mantra meaning from two Sanskrit roots to liberate the mind, mantrayate, and so Hare Krishna. I think is probably how I would greet someone at the temple, and it's an evocative. It's calling out to Krishna, recognizing the divine in the other is not unlike Namaste in that regards.
Right. And what about
And
Haribol? How does that
Haribol is
distinguish itself?
yeah. I might use Haribol at the end of a conversation as I'm hanging up the telephone, or it's more of a celebratory type of uh, statement. So Haribol.
Okay.
I have a question. Does Hare Krishna have more than one meaning?
Um, Well, I suppose ultimately, yes. I mean, Krishna is a word that means all attractive, right? So that can be used as a term to capture a whole variety of things in our tradition. It's also the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, in the case of Hare Krishna, we're speaking about a specific entity, right? The personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
And Krishna, thank you, Mac. Thank you. I
Mhm.
love the idea that how you framed it, at least, that with the imagery or the idea of mantra being liberating or crossing over the mind,
Mhm.
and that you bring that into a greeting, that greeting each other is allowing us, just the act of greeting, simple greeting,
Mhm.
is a way of helping us cross over the mind of it's a potential transformation in a greeting. It's very rich, and
Well,
we
it really
often
sets
take our
it
yeah
sets the table for the conversation.
yes yeah.
Which is how we learn, right? So how
But
we learn from each
sadly, we
other.
just greet. We don't think.
Mhm.
We all do it. We
Mhm.
have beautiful exchanges, but we don't often see the broader vision that is behind the words that we use. So thank
Yeah,
you all for that. And
and I've
Krishna, is there anything
yeah.
else that you'd like to share about greeting?
We, like Mohan said, we use the word adiyan a lot. Adiyan is it's reflective of our the learning and the mood with gratitude that we are here to serve. And I think that is one of the most important aspects of our tradition, um, that we emphasize on the sense of servitude to not only God but God's creation.
Mhm. Yeah, that is so rich. A greeting and the idea. How do you spell it? How would just so we can all know exactly how to pronounce that word?
So
The most,
if
go
you
ahead.
transliterate it, it's like Adiyen. So I can type it out on the chat. A
Adien.
Adiyen.
Beautiful. And that idea of a greeting, I am greeting you, not just hello, but I'm greeting you with a heart of service almost.
Yes.
And I mean, hearing that, it's inspiring, but I wonder, I'm just asking, does that just become, I'll give you an example in the Jewish world of how this happens. When we say shalom,
Uh-huh.
shalom aleichem, well, we basically say it means it's how you greet, it's our hello.
Mhm.
But it's much deeper than that. And we're not going to talk about the depth of it, but just an idea behind it is the word, as we know, means peace or
Right.
wholeness.
Yeah.
And how often are we thinking that this greeting that I'm offering you, I'm saying shalom to all of you, how often am I aware of, and how often are you aware of, that I am wishing you, ideally, peace and wholeness and restoration by our encounter? I'm hoping, but that's not what's often in our minds. And I wonder if the richness of your greetings in the Hindu world, are they lost? Do they just become casual, like most things in life? Or are you aware when you greet somebody with the mudras and with the words that, my goodness, there's a real potential here for an
Absolutely.
encounter?
I'm pretty sure it's, in the other traditions too, it is that for a practitioner, this is one of those places where we actually put what we learn into practice.
Hmm.
So when I'm actually, greeting, say, Mohan Adiyan, it gives me the opportunity to understand that I am not, a lot of anything. I start to practice this sense of servitude with a fellow human being, and more specifically to somebody who will understand my language. So I'm doing that. But even when Sri Ram was talking about the word namaste, uh, yes, the common definition is the divinity in me bows to the divinity in you, but there is also another meaning to that word namaha plus te, right? Namaha means I am not for myself, but I'm for you. Like that sense of servitude is in that word namaha itself. It's so somebody who's a practitioner, who's a student, they grasp that and we try to put that into practice. And yes, for a practitioner, it's one of those places where we start. So it's an important thing. For others, yes, it can get lost in translation if that uh, the proper learning is not there from an acharya who's trying to teach us that, hey, practice that sense of servitude on a day-to-day basis, not just in a spiritual level, but on a day-to-day basis.
And we've heard again, we're going to hear a lot of words. If somebody doesn't know, or if you don't remember some of the words, you need a clarification, please feel free
Yeah,
to
I would
chime
like to
in. But
add to what Krishna said,
mhm,
Rabbi Joe, if I may.
please,
Uh,
please.
again, for regarding these words getting lost in translation,
Yeah.
I guess that's where it becomes a ritual from what was spiritual.
Rich.
Yeah.
Because the spirit is lost in the word
Mm.
when we do not know the meaning. So, yeah, thank you.
True, true, true. Now that you're here with us, Krishna, I thought, why don't you start? We're going to do a chant in a moment, and I'll discuss why. But before we enter a little more formally in, why don't each of you describe the meaning of your name? Because names in ancient societies are not random. They are given with intent and with purpose to instruct and to guide us in life. The Tamil language, the Sanskrit language is so rich. And could you describe just briefly the meanings behind your name so we can help understand the purpose that your name was given to you for? So why don't we start with you, Krishna?
So on my screen, you will see my name is Krishna Madhavan. That is my, like what his conference would say, that's my legal name. So if you go to the university, they'll call me Dr. Krishna Madhavan. Krishna is the name given by my parents to me. And the tradition in India is you give names of, and same thing will, I'm speaking ahead, same thing with Sri Ram also. These are the names of the Supreme, in our tradition,
Mm,
that our tradition holds that when the parents give those names, it's a way of calling the Supreme on a regular basis. So when
mm,
my parents gave me the name Krishna, um, it is to call out this Supreme's name on a regular basis. So it can be a common thing for who's not a practitioner also, but for a practitioner like me or Mohan, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Mohan will talk about this when he's doing it. Uh, when we go through the process of initiation, we get what is called a Dasyanama. Dasyanama is something which denotes um, our servitude to the Supreme or to a teacher, which means that if you see, just as an example, our friend here, Mac, has his name Makanchor Das. So in any Vaishnava tradition, we are going to have initiated practitioners with the name Das in their this thing, because we are subservient to not only the Supreme, but to his creation also. And like I said, the word adiyan, when we are telling we want to share our that idea that we are subservient to the God's creation, our name also denotes that. So the name given to me during my initiation is Krishna Srinivasa Dasa. And it Krishna is my given name. So my guru asks us to continue with our given name on the front. And then Srinivasa Dasa is I am subservient, or I am a servant of that teacher, one of the teachers, Srinivasacharya, in our tradition, who propagated, he came after Ramanujacharya and then Ramanuja, and he propagated the ideas of Vedas, or the ideas of the Arvas, in the Divya Prabandham in the Tamil language. And my name is denoting that the tradition I come from, the teachers are telling me that you take up servitude to that teacher in insight, practice, and then show that servitude to the rest of the world. So that is where our name, like there are so many things which are there for us, which keep reminding us that we are here to serve, not to lord over anything. So that's the significance of my name, and I can type it down like when Mohan or Sriram is talking, you can have a look. I'll type down my name, Krishna Srinivasa Dasa.
And you mentioned Das.
Yes.
What is the significance of Das?
Das is servant, the word servant. So, yeah, it's very interesting that in material life, we don't want to be servant of anybody, but in spiritual life, we want to be servant of everybody.
Yeah.
So from God to
beautiful.
every fellow human being, even to like other living beings, in whatever way we can serve, we should be able to serve.
Beautiful. All right. Mohan, tell us the story of your name.
Yeah, so Sagar is my dad's name. So my name is actually, my full name is actually Mohan Raghavan. Is my actual, the Dasyanama I was given, Mohan Raghava Ramanujadasa. Mohan is a word that basically means enchanting, charming, right? And the Raghava is the one who is the beacon of the Raghu dynasty. The dynasty is a reference to Rama, the great god king of Indian theology, who is considered to be an avatar of Mahavishnu, the seventh avatar of Mahavishnu. And so there is a temple called Veeraraghava Perumal Temple in near Chennai. And so that god there is known as Veeraraghava, the brave Rama. So there's named the charming Rama, but I was named actually after my grandfather because he had that name. So, but he had Acharya at the end of his name, so his name is Mohan Raghava Acharya.
Beautiful. Mac?
Once again, the intent is once again to add that Dasa to the name at the end, because even though that's my name, my mood is to be of service to others.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Mac?
Yeah, so when I took initiation in the Bhakti tradition, I was given the name Makancharas. And so in the ISKCON tradition, it's you are given a name of Krishna. And so Makanchar translates as butter thief. And so it's
butter thief?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So so my whole name is Servant of the Butter Thief, and it's the early tales of Krishna as a kind of rambunctious young boy, and his mother can't control him, and he runs around and steals butter from everybody's butter churn, and so at least in with my teacher, they choose something that kind of resembles your name. So my name is Mac, and Makanchor, so it kind of has that connection. So I am. It just indicates that I'm a servant of Lord Krishna.
Aha. And thank you for that, Christo. That was actually very funny. He butter not. Very good. Uh, what you mentioned Bhakti and ISKCON, which is an acronym. Just for we'll get into these terms later, but briefly, what is ISKCON, the movement that you're affiliated with? What is the symbolism, or what does the
Sure.
acronym stand for? And a brief, as we say in Judaism, on one foot, summary of Bhakti, which we'll get into more because this is foundational to many of your faith traditions.
Yeah, so yes, ISKCON is an abbreviation, International Society of Krishna Consciousness. It was founded kind of most recently as a movement in the US or in the West by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada in the 60s. And it's a movement of people all around the world at this point. And the word bhakti is a Sanskrit word that means devotion. So bhakti yoga is the path of devotion.
Beautiful. You did great. That was on one foot perfectly.
Yeah.
And Sri Ganesh.
Yeah. So regarding my name, right? So Shri means it's just an auspicious start or prefix to something. And Ram is an avatar of Vishnu, like Mohan pointed out, who was actually God in the human form, or we should say, like Rama showed the world how human beings can, behave, and in their daily actions, how they can be closer to divine. Uh, so, having said that, all the names, right? I mean, religion and spirituality is also very steeped in culture. So in those days, I would just like to give the cultural perspective also. So generally, the way they name is to name a kid, based on the grandfather's name. So the grandfather's name is taken by the grandson. Again, his son would take the father's name. So it's all like the kids generally take the grandfather's name. So my grandfather's name was Ramaswamy, and they named me Sri Ram. And my grandmother wanted, her son to have a kid, and then prayed that she would write Rama, 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 right? In those days, to just calm the mind. One way is chanting the God's name, and other way is also to write, so that your thoughts and your actions are also like in sync. So she actually prayed to God and said that she would write Rama, Rama, Rama 10 million times, right, on my birth. I mean, I just remember her until I turned 14 or 15, the first 15 years of my life, every day with a big fat pen filled with ink, she would write the words Rama, 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 and then she completed 10 million of those in 15 years. So the name itself is very, very connected to the divine, is connected to the family lineage. And by naming someone the God's name, you are always reminded that you are more than just a human being, and the divinity is actually in you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And you you mentioned chanting. And well, I have a question. What if your grandmother, when she was writing, if she was at like 4,256,000, then she forgot. Did she have to start over the counting? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Uh, Now you mentioned you can edit that part out.
No,
You mentioned
as a
chanting.
as a even as a, this thing, people if they forgot the chanting of the names and writing of the names are so sweet that people wouldn't mind doing it for another 10 million times.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, listen, it sounds better, Sri Ganesh, than Joe. So I agree.
No.
I
So,
ain't saying Joe, I hope nobody has to say it 10 million times. But you mentioned chanting, Sri Ganesh, and I thought that, it's one thing to gain insight into a culture or a faith. We learn about its wisdom and its rituals, but your tradition has rich song and chanting, as we've been hearing.
mhm.
And maybe you'll discuss a little bit later on, Mac, when we progress here, a little bit about your practice of chanting in ISKCON through with your movement. Uh, the I'd love for us as we begin a more formal study to start with maybe a chant. In Judaism, when we begin a study, technically we do it in the morning, which covers the whole day, but many people don't do it in the morning, so we do a blessing before a study. And we're going to have our study. And when we have a Torah study, we say a blessing over the Torah, over our holy text. Two things. One, I would love if one of you would offer us a chant to begin our sacred study, because as Mac will describe later, your sacred text, your central text is the song of God. And your practice is the Maha Mantra, is the great mantra, the great chant that you repeat several, I'll let you tell them how many, but a lot of times a day, many times. So I thought maybe we could begin one with a brief chant from one of your traditions, whoever wants to lead us. But two, I'm wondering also, before you begin your textual studies in any of your traditions, do you also have a prayer or a blessing that you say before study?
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you do, I'd love to hear it. And then someone will lead us in a chant, and then we'll get into a little more of the technical aspects of our
Mhm.
faith representatives.
So generally, in the Vedantic traditions, right, before embarking on any study, the teacher and the student, they both recite this chant, uh, which says that, hey, may we grow together and may we not, you know, become, may we not have enmity between us at any point of time. And may our friendship grow and may we thrive and not have an enmity between us. So that's the chant before any formal lesson. And it goes like, is it okay for me to chant that?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify did it sounded like anonymity at the end, but the first time I
Oh,
thought it was
sorry,
enmity.
enmity. I said enmity, like
Like enmity, like hatred?
hostile. Yeah,
Ah,
enmity.
And
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Beautiful. No, that's what a profound way of entering study, because isn't that what our whole purpose is in studying sacred text? Not just to learn, but to be transformed and to be able to
Yeah.
have that connection and light and love between each other. That's so beautiful. So yeah, please chant for us.
Mm. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahavidyam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. let's
One do
start
that
off.
is
Couldn't hear it. Say it
do
again.
that together and just once or continually for a minute?
No, it is just once they say, and conclude it with Shanti, 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 which means may there be peace in me, may there be peace in the community around me, and may there be peace in the entire world and universe.
Okay. Very
Shanti
nice.
means peace. Yeah.
Is that in Sanskrit?
Yeah, that is in Sanskrit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. And we will close our session when we finish with another chant. Is there a closing prayer that you say also over or after studies?
There is a closing prayer also, wishing welfare to everyone in the world and every being in the world and wishing them well. And this is also, again, a typical tradition in Buddhist tradition, like in Vipassana meditation, we have metta, right? And so most of the traditions will end with wishing well for everyone, every being, and again offering prostrations to the Lord. But then
Beautiful.
again, like like Makan Chordas and Krishna and Mohan can talk more about that too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So with that, let's get into a few aspects, some of which we will revisit from our last discussion because there are themes that obviously they all share, but with different insights into the theologies or the approaches. So first, I'd like, if we could, for each of you to describe for lack of a better term, the movement or the approach, the broad term, speaking in terms of Dvaita, Advaita, and the in between the two. Let's just see what are these worlds what are the worlds that are represented by the term Dvaita or Advaita or the intermediate sort of position
Vishishta
between them.
Advaita.
Yeah.
Advaita.
So you want to, let's see, why don't we start with you, Shri?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So Advaita, I'll talk about Advaita. And Dvaita is a Sanskrit word that means duality, right? And Advaita is the opposite of that, and it symbolizes non-duality. So it's actually a Hindu philosophy that says that the individual consciousness, that is the Jivatma, and the universal consciousness, the Paramatma, are one and the same. It's also based on the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras, and how that has been interpreted to come up with this. And to support in that, it also takes the four main statements made in the various Vedas called Mahavakyas. So Mahavakyas are the great saying from the four different Vedas. And it says for the first one, like from Samaveda, it says Tattvamasi, and which means that you are same as that universal consciousness or Brahman. And Aham Brahmasmi, which is another Mahavakya, says that I am indeed Brahman. And Prajnanam Brahma, which says that consciousness is indeed Brahma. And the fourth one, let me just make sure I get it right. So it is I am Atma Brahma. So this individual consciousness is Brahman. So the Advaita philosophy believes that the individual consciousness, because of the ignorance surrounding the individual consciousness, or the Maya, we call it Maya, which is ignorance, or the illusion, makes us think that we are different from that universal consciousness which pervades this entire world. It believes in Ishvara, which is the creator, and the creator and the creation itself, it's no different. The creator is indeed the creation. So that perception is kind of veiled by Maya or ignorance. And when we realize that we are indeed that universal consciousness, and we merge into the universal consciousness, and then attain the mukti, or kind of like liberation or moksha.
Okay. I am so tempted to ask a few questions
Sure.
on this. I'm wondering, how do you think we should do this? I'm leaving this up to you. You're the experts here. Should we discuss each of the philosophies or approaches individually? I'll let Sri Ganesh speak. I'll ask a few questions. People can ask questions, and then we'll discuss with you, Mohan, and Krishna. And then if Mac has anything that he wants to share and clarify, do you think that would be better, or should we go through everybody first and
That would be
then?
better.
You
Yeah,
think
my
that's better?
recommendation is to
Otherwise,
hear all three positions first, and then
Perfect.
you can do a
Perfect.
comparative study. It makes it easier.
Thank you. Just
Yeah.
wanted, that was my inclination, but I wanted to get the experts. All
And
right.
I
So,
would recommend Matt discussing a little bit of Dvaita Vedanta before we go into
yes,
Vichishta Dvaita.
yes. Yeah, that's why I'm so glad you're here, because we've got all three. So why don't we start off with, then we'll go to Mac, because that's more of a distinct approach. Why don't we start with you, continue with you, Mac, and then we'll continue with Mohan and Krishna to get a mediating position between these two approaches.
Well, I have to quickly apologize. I'm at work, and I'm just being called into something. I'm going to try to be back in just a few moments, but it's terrible timing since you just called on me. But I'll do my best to be right back.
Okay,
Sorry.
so then no worries. So Sherry, we'll just let you represent the Dvaita,
I don't think that's a great idea. I think we should invite our esteemed guest to
Okay. So
take the
let's
microphone here.
continue with Vishishtadvaita. We'll continue with Mohan. You want to start sharing this vision or this understanding of the however how would you even define this? Is this a philosophy? Is this a
In the history of all religious traditions in India, which have all been put into this big umbrella called Hinduism, have a certain set of philosophical principles on which they're based. It has to be something which is called in Sanskrit as pramanam, logical argument. In other words, it's an argument that can build on other arguments, but it has to provide a systematic logic to the position that is being placed. Western belief oftentimes has it begins with the notion of God, right? And then just says, okay, here are God's commands, or here is what God expects, or here is what God has done for us. But the Vedantic traditions begin with the nature of what is God, right? And that's so the three different positions, Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, argue with the position of understanding what are called the Tattva-trayam, three tattvas, right? There is this
the
in
three
this
what?
world,
I'm sorry,
three
the three
tattvas, tattva,
okay.
yeah, tattva, or three realities. There are three different things that we experience in this universe or in this existence, right? One is we experience matter, right? Which is, rocks, tables, our body, everything is made up of elements, right? Metals, minerals, all of the things that the table of elements is what we're all made of. Everything in this world is made up of that, right? Everything in this universe is made up of that. That's physical substance, right? The next thing that we have is each one of us has an intellect, consciousness, a sense of I-ness, right? Each one of us is an individual. And that individuality is another reality, another tattva, right? The third tattva is this notion called Brahman. Brahman in Sanskrit means something very big, something which cannot be understood. There has to be something that is keeping this relationship of physical reality, this individual identity together. And that togetherness is called as Brahman. Whatever is causing it is Ishvara or Brahman, right? Ishvara is Sriram, which is the same meaning. Ishvara is something which is complete, something which is completing all of this, right? So it's kind of a mathematical equation. How do these three realities work together? So Advaita has one argument, Dvaita has one argument, and Vishishta Advaita has one argument. They're not mutually exclusive, but they are they're different perspectives on that truth, on what is that relationship. When Matt comes back, he will probably discuss the Dvaita relationship, which means that this world and this matter and this identities are individual, right? And they exist completely distinctly from this this Ishvara that is keeping them in balance. That is Dvaita, which basically says that it's very similar to the concept of God in Christianity. God is in his heaven, right? All's well with the world, right? God is somewhere. He's beyond us. He's not here with us. He's beyond us. So there's a distinct relationship. He's maintaining everything, certainly, but he's beyond us, right? Advaita says, which as Sri Rama said so very eloquently, believes that this this temporal reality we're in, which is made up of matter and our individual identity, is not what's important. It's ignorance. It is created by ignorance. And in the totality of things, in the true reality of things, our individual identity is one with that universal consciousness. So if we detach ourselves from this perspective of individual realities, we become one with that universal consciousness. That's what mukti is in Advaita. Vishishta Advaita kind of goes in a slightly different perspective. It is Advaita, but with Visishtam, right? Visishta means qualities, right? So what it identifies is this universal reality, Brahman, right? Think of, we start with matter, right? In order for matter to operate, matter is still. In order for it to move, it has to have something in it which we call life, right? We call life. That life that is making animals to walk, makes people to be who they are, having all these individual realities, this prana, this life, is called as a jiva or an atma. It is an individual. It's an individual reality which is present in this body, which makes me one with this body. And I feel a oneness with my body, even though I'm not really one. I'm inside this body as an entity, a little microscopic entity, which is called an atma, which cannot be seen with the naked eye. It says it's take a hair out of your head and cut it into 10,000 little fragments and strip it 10,000 different times and take that small piece and make it 10,000 times smaller. That's the size of an atma. But that atma is pervading this body. So that's why I can, my hands are here, my feet are there, and so on, because atma pervades. Just like that, all of reality, its entire existence, is pervaded by that Ishvara. So just like I have a body, and
meaning the God.
Meaning the God, right. This God is the soul of all existence. So existence is real, God is real, right? And existence is basically dependent upon God for its totality. So it's
when you say I'm sorry just to clarify, when you're speaking of Ishvara, God.
Yeah. Yes.
This isn't the supreme Godhead, correct?
Right. It is supreme, right? It could be.
Oh, it is.
Right. It is supreme. It is the truth, right? The ultimate truth. So Brahman or Ishvara is the ultimate truth. How our relationship is with that ultimate truth, it is the three various schools, right? So one school says
Atman,
the Atman. Atma is the individual identity, right? The individual identity, if it does not exist when it goes to mukti, which is what Advaita believes, right?
Yes.
That makes it oneness. That means nothing can exist other than that Ishvara, right? This other existence is ignorance, right? This world, you, me, cars, trucks, everything, that's all ignorance, right? It's all created by our ignorance. The moment we achieve knowledge, as Dvaita says, our consciousness is lost, our individuality is lost into that great oneness. That's Advaita. Dvaita says, no, you are on this earth. God is somewhere. You have to go and try to reach him. He's very compassionate. He's there to help you out, but you have to work towards getting to him, right? And that work is done through the various yoga practices, through meditation, through rituals, through so many different things that you have to employ in your life to get there, right? Vishishta Advaita argues that you're already one with him, but you're one but different because you're like, uh, this is my hand. It's me, but it's just a part of me, right? So just like that, each one of us is forming a cosmic organism, the body of God, a literal body of God. This universe he is resting upon him, upon this Ishvara for its existence. So the entire universe is ultimate, is dependent upon this Ishvara, right? So it is serving that Ishvara. That is what is happening. That's where the servitude concept comes in. That's where the Adiyan concept comes in. Is this entire universe of existence is there for his benefit because he has brought out this universe from his being, right, to serve as his body.
Mm-hmm.
That's Vishishta Advaita.
And is there, well, you had mentioned also in there the jiva.
Right, the
where
jiva and the atman are identical, right?
they are.
They're
Okay.
identical, right? The
It's just
Atman
different terminology.
Different terminology. The Atman of Advaita is the Jiva of Vishishta Advaita, but the concept is the same.
Okay.
Sherry's
Sherry?
got a question.
Is it fair to am I wrong to think of Atman as soul?
As soul, right?
Okay.
Many people, though, in Western traditions think of soul as being a part of you. In the case of Atma or Jiva, soul is you. Basically, there's a statement that was made by a friend of Sri Ramanathan who said, "You're not a soul. You're not a physical being having a spiritual side. You're a spiritual being having a physical side. So your true nature is spiritual. Your true nature is that Atma, right? And in its purest form, Atma is full of knowledge. So it is completely aware of everything that's going on, right? But it is ignorant now because it's contained within this body and experiencing life and experiencing the ignorance that comes with life, right? It comes with life's many ups and downs and ebbs and flows that we call life. We are ignorant. And knowledge is known when we see ourselves realizing that this universe is the body of God. So therefore, it is in service to God. And therefore, everything that's happening around us that becomes an organism, and our joy is found in cooperating with that, in living our life as a life of servitude, as a life of service to that cosmic being. That's Vishishta Advaita in a nutshell.
And no, that's you both expressed these approaches to life and wisdom and philosophy so richly. And we'll get into the texts, your textual heritage, which guide us into ways of discovering the deeper side of ourselves and the deeper reality of life in a few moments. Mac, you came at the perfect time. So let's explore for a few minutes the Dvaita world of thought and the reasoning behind it, the symbolism behind it, how that offers us insight into life.
I was just going to agree with everything Mohan said. So, so I apologize for stepping out. So I don't know. I guess I don't know what was already talked about, but I did hear at the very end of the last conversation lots of talk of Jiva and Batman, and sorry, I'm just and now I'm having a hard time coming back to this conversation.
Mohan, you want to rein him?
Sorry.
You want to frame the conversation? We've just heard from Sri Ganesh, who is Advaita. We heard from Mohan, and we'll hear from Krishna also about the Vishishta Advaita, the qualified dualism, I guess.
Qualified non-dualism, actually.
Non-dualism, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and so you are more in the Dvaita
Yeah,
world,
so
correct? So
Dvaita,
explain
yeah,
that for
Vedanta.
us.
Yeah, I would label it as dualism, right? So philosopher in the 1200s, Madhvacharya, talks about Brahman, Vishnu, or Krishna, and jivas, the individual souls, or the Atman, as Mohan was saying, kind of eternally distinct, and union doesn't occur. Vishnu or Krishna is supreme, and the Sanskrit word is like saguna, meaning kind of inclusive of all attributes, so formless in that sense, and separate from who we are as individuals, but our Atman is created and eternal, and it's described, our Atman is described as Satchitananda, right? So eternal and blissful and full of knowledge, as Mohan was saying. So Jiva, the Atman is dependent on Brahman as a created being, and remain distinct, but are created, and like Mohan was saying at the very end, he said, "This is my hand," right? But it's not who I am, right? If I cut my hand off, you don't look at it and say, "There's Mac." It's I am a part of this divine creation, and as a divine creation, I seek to be of service to the Creator and to the rest of creation.
Wonderful. Is there anything you wanted to add, Krishna, before we explore a little more of this?
The only point, in addition to what Mohan has said, and you're on the same platform as what the school which Mac is from. The philosophical ideas are very similar. The main point which we always stress is um, the the soul and the supreme are always distinctly different, but with some similarities. There are some similarities between the soul and the supreme. There are some similarities. I mean, if need be, we can go over that. But at the same time, as Mohan was pointing out, we are not a school of uh, non-dualism from the same perspective of Sri Ram, but from the idea that we are all body to the supreme. So there is no difference between, I mean, for a practitioner like me or Mohan, when we say Advaita, what it signifies is that everything, what we see and what we don't see, what we perceive and what we don't perceive, are all the body of God, which means that we are having an eternal relationship of a sort of a dependence on Him, on the Supreme.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
that is the sense of Advaita in Visishta Advaita, not from the perspective of, there is similarity or that they are the same or something, but the souls are always distinct from one another and from the Supreme.
Wonderful. Now, we're going to get to a few more concepts in a moment. I just want to ask, does anybody have any questions on these three approaches before I start asking a few questions? Okay, so my question since Mac went last, I'll ask you, Mac. In Dvaitism, in your approach, we are eternally separate and distinct. I understood that correctly? The created aspect of our jiva, of our essence, of our soul, that is from God, and it is godly. Is in Western or in Jewish thought, Jewish Christian, it's the image and the spark and the likeness of the divine within us.
Yes,
Is
I
that
agree with that. Yes.
okay? So then, if we have that spark of the divine, how are we eternally or absolutely separate if there is some aspect or element of the divine within?
So a common analogy is used if you imagine that instead of being pens, these are two candles, and one is lit, and I light this candle. It's created by the same fire and has the same principles and essence, right? It's hot and provides light. It's not the same, however, right? So the idea is that's kind of how we think of the divine creating the individual soul, right? It contains and has the same qualities and essence of the creator.
So when that takes place, that's what I'm asking. Post creation,
Mhm,
post lighting,
mhm.
isn't there a blending of sorts or an aspect of or overlap of sorts between the being of the universe, of God, who now shared that dimension with us, just like the flame is now sharing, and there is overlap between the two. It doesn't seem as if they're too distinct.
Yeah. So, uh, I mean, I guess I would say, distinct, but sharing
Okay.
of these characteristics or these of that essence, right? So, um, and the created, the dharma, the kind of the truth of that is that we serve the creator.
Okay, that's now, at least in my limited understanding, that's sounding more like qualified non-dualism. So is it a little more, I mean, am I hearing it right,
Yeah,
Mohan?
sorry, I think I'm probably, having come from Buddhism, which is, a non-personalist,
Mm,
perspective. I think probably I don't represent ISKCON as clearly as someone might, because of
okay.
the blend of my
Mhm.
25 years of other understandings of
Sure.
Jiva and Atman and the soul, the self.
Okay,
I
so
think
it
that
is, you think, in ISKCON more of a distinctive separate, there's a distinction that is greater than within your tradition, right, Mohan?
that's correct. It's not
Okay.
as, but we will,
Yeah.
because both of them are theistic traditions, both of them believe in a
Ah,
God who cares, right?
Mhm.
In the fundamental difference in Advaita is God is pure consciousness, is Satchidananda,
mm,
pure bliss, right? So when one reaches that state of pure bliss, there's nothing called, there's no, uh, there's no, uh, uh, there's no object or subject, right? There's just
ah,
oneness. There's just this bliss, right? There's just this blissfulness, the state of
Oneness.
eternal happiness, eternal oneness, right? Where Vishishta Dvaita and Dvaita agree, and Matt did give it presented very well, actually, is that the notion is that there's a dependency, there's a dependent relationship between the soul and the supreme. It's always there because the supreme being is essentially in a mood that most Westerners can relate to. The supreme being is like a parent to the soul, right? Someone who cares in a
mhm.
parental kind of way for the welfare of the soul. Right? So that it was where Dvaita and Vishita Dvaita agree. So there's a lot of similarities there between the arguments between the two of the two schools. The
And
difference
the
in
relationship,
right,
very important.
the relationship is true, very important. It's eternal, right? In other words, that
Mhm.
loving nature of God towards the soul is always eternal. The soul is dependent upon God, much like a small child would be dependent upon his parent, right? The same kind of relationship is there. And so the soul, to seek happiness, turns to the parent for that love and nurturing. So those or where the commonalities are. So the difference between Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita is probably less than the difference between Advaita and Vishishta Dvaita, because Advaita would then say, no, there's no subject-object relationship. There's just oneness. It's just that pure feeling of love.
So then my question for you to help clarify for you and Krishna is, we heard Sri Ganesh mention, right? Tatsvayatam, I am that.
Yeah, Tattvamasi.
Meaning,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I am that. Right? And that is I. You both share that textually. If I am that, where is the separation that you're seeing that, and Sri Ganesh, you'll explain why. I'll have a question on the non-dualism period.
Krishna can answer this better than I can, so I'll let Krishna answer this one.
So how if I am that, how am I not that? Because like I've heard in another way it was framed as, if you take part of infinity, you have infinity.
Yeah.
Because the infinite. So if I'm taking part of that infinity within, how am I not that?
Yes.
So, Krishna, you want to go?
Yeah, and then I'll ask, yes, absolutely. And you can share after, and then I'll ask you a question also.
So yeah, I go first. So in Visishta Advaita, as we call it, the qualified non-dualism, the soul is still very distinct from the Supreme. One thing which is commonly accepted, I mean, I'm going to speak a little out of turn here, because one thing has to be made clear before we go forward in this discussion is what we mean by creation. Creation in any of these traditions, I'm not going to speak for Sri Ram Ganesh. He can explain about creation in his tradition, but this pertains to what you were asking, what Mac was also explaining. In any of the theistic tradition, that is theistic in the sense that we agree upon the reality of the world, the reality of the soul, and the reality of God. Creation does not mean God creates the soul.
Creation does not mean God creates the soul.
Yes, it is very important to understand that the soul is also eternal. So, of course, I may not have all the answers. I know a lot of answers, a lot of questions which can come based on what I'm going to say, but I'll try to answer it as efficiently as possible so that we can have more discussion. So God never creates the soul, because Vedas are very clear, and Krishna and Bhagavad Gita clearly says that the soul is never created nor destroyed. So
destroyed.
Yeah, it's never created and it's never destroyed, but it's not God.
It's not God. It's that's why we say it's this being a part of God does not mean that, again, we are seeing all of these things from a material perspective, because we can understand this, we can try to understand the Supreme only based on the examples which we are able to perceive, which is like a body, our hand attached to the body. But our relation to the Supreme is not the same, not exactly the same as how our hand is attached to the body. Like there is something more which is on a spiritual plane than on a material plane.
Sure.
Which we may not be able to explain other than actually feeling it, that relationship, and that we are eternally connected with the Supreme. So God never creates the soul, but what is creation? The creation is embodiment of the soul inside matter. That is, every soul takes a body at the time of birth. That is creation.
Say that again. Sorry.
I'm saying when a soul is embodied in material body, that is creation. Not, I mean, of course, we have the creation of the world. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
God creates material, whatever we are seeing throughout this world. That is the that's the part where you don't have to put the jiva into the equation. But when we are talking about the creation of jiva, if anything is associated with that concept, it means that God puts this soul inside a body. That
Mhm.
is what uh, any of these traditions will call as creation of the soul. There is no specific creation of the soul, like, the soul comes into existence. No, there is nothing like that in any of the Vedic traditions. The soul has always remained that way.
Hmm.
But then the question is, uh, can you just I wanted to put that in this thing, and then Rabbi Joe,
Yeah.
can you reframe your question so that I can connect it again?
Yeah, we were starting with,
Tatvamasi, yes, Tatvamasi.
yes.
So I spoke about how I was on the right track, but I lost the train of thought for a moment. So I talked about the soul being put in a body, right, at the time of birth,
Mhm.
and that is creation. And I also told what is the relationship between, spiritually, the soul is related to the supreme, in the sense that the supreme pervades that soul also. That is, there is a
Say
soul,
that again.
the supreme
Mhm.
pervades that soul like it pervades the entire manifestation.
But it is distinct.
It is still distinct. Example is, if you take a sponge, dip
Ah,
it in water, what happens? Can you see when you take the sponge out of water? Can you see water? It may be still dripping, but imagine everything is absorbed into it.
right.
The sponge is still distinct from the water,
Mhm.
but the water is now embodied into that sponge. That's again a very material way of explaining it, but for us to understand, something like that is happening. There is a constant relationship between the supreme and the soul, that the supreme pervades the soul also. That is what the Vedas say. Yes,
And
yeah.
in that, oh, yes, go ahead, Sherry, please.
So I'm just so curious, how does your tradition explain um the math behind the souls? Because I mean, if souls are eternal and they've never begun, they've never ended, but we have billions more people than we did, thousands of years ago. So how does that work? How does that?
The thing here is, we in our Vedic tradition, we believe, we have, of course, even not just we believe, it's there in our traditional, the text, the pramanas, as Mohan was saying, that not just human beings are not the only ones with souls. We believe that animals, trees,
Hmm.
anything, there are things which don't even move. They can have souls. There are millions of souls which we don't know, that they are going through these different life forms, which are, we cannot even grasp them. Like,
Mhm.
for something to be animated, there has to be a soul inside. So even a bacteria has a soul, but the difference between the soul of a bacteria versus the soul of us is that the knowledge level. Mohan spoke about the pervasion, right? Knowledge pervades that body, but for bacteria, it can only pervade to that size. But for a human being, it can pervade through this whole body.
Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
there is a difference in that sense. And just to quickly answer, I don't know if I'm confusing you or anything, as far as the pervasion is concerned, that this supreme not only pervades material entities, but
Hmm.
also the spirit soul is also
Right.
pervaded by the supreme.
And that's what I wanted to ask. When it pervades,
Right.
is the soul still an independent entity from, or doesn't become in the sponge, the water is absorbed, but God, when God pervades us, God is still God and we are still distinctly soul.
Exactly. That is how it works. The only
There's
difference,
always a beloved and a lover, always. So the
Okay.
relationship between the beloved and the lover is there's a spiritual oneness that exists between people who are in love, right? That spiritual oneness is how God is there with us, at the same time remains distinct from us. So that enjoyment of the beloved and the lover, right? The Lord serving both ways is
And
maintained.
is, just real quick, Krishna, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
does the soul in any way transform by that union? Is it different after union with the divine?
no, not in that sense of like it doesn't become
Divinity.
anything different. It is still that soul which is
Okay.
eternally subservient to the Lord, to the Supreme. That
Okay.
will never change. And this quote, which is a favorite of mine from the ISKCON tradition, it's a very favorite of mine, which Tusta quoted last time. I don't know how many of you remember. Jivera Swarubhai, Krishnera Nityadas. That is the eternal nature of the soul is being subservient to Krishna. That does not change in any of these situations. How much we may say two souls, one body. When
Hmm.
in I don't know, one of the Arabian night stories also has it. I can't remember which one, but there are two souls. They're so much in love. They feel everything. Like this person feels pain, this person feels pain. Like that, they are one as far as body is concerned. It's like that, but they're still two different souls.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
finally, just to
Wonderful.
explain that Tattvamasi, just to
Yeah.
come back to it, the this question of Tattvamasi in Visishtadvaita or in any of the other tradition is that what we say is what the acharyas give, how we explain this is that Lord who pervades that soul, pervades me, is the one who is in the eternal abode.
Mhm. Perfect.
That
Yes.
Tvam, Tvam is he is inside you. Why do we say that? Tvam means in Sanskrit you. But why do we say you as in the soul, but not only the soul, but the Lord who pervades inside it is because when I say Joe, am I calling you or the soul who is inside your body?
Mhm.
In this life, this soul has the name Joe, correct? In our tradition, we'll say
Yes.
multiple lives, but in your tradition also, when I call you Joe, it is this embodied soul in your body, in Joe's body. Your body is different from the soul, right?
Mhm.
And if you separate out that Joe's soul from the body, what happens to the body?
Dies.
Dies. Exactly. So the thing which is making this body stand up is the soul. In this same spiritual sense, this the Lord who pervades that soul is making the soul stand up.
So both are within me. Okay.
That
Right,
is
both are within. Right.
so. Who
The
is there in
analogy
eternal
is
abode is inside me.
the analogy is used in the Upanishads, right? In the Smritas Atara Upanishad, there is a statement which speaks of two birds who are sitting in the same tree.
Right.
One bird is partaking of the seeds on the tree. One bird is just observing. So the one who is partaking of this life is the individual soul. The one who is observing and still kind of morally supporting that soul, the other bird is Ishvara, is the supreme.
Yeah, this bird, the second bird whom he just mentioned, is the same as the one who is who's transcendental also.
So it's transcendent and immanent.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
That's where Vishishtadvaita tries to support the
that is
argument.
the main definition of Tattvamasi according to our tradition, that there is transcendence and there is immanence. Sorry, I'm not too familiar with the English terms, but yes, transcendence
Yeah.
and immanence, correct.
Yeah, I was going to use all the Tamil terms, but I didn't want to show off.
We would be so happy for you.
Yeah.
We would cheer from the sidelines for you.
There you go. There you
Yes.
go. Well, we're going to get back to life, multiple lives, karma, texts
Yes.
in a moment. But
Yes.
Sri Ganesh, I have a question. If there's anything you want to clarify, because it might clarify my questions or our questions, if anybody has any.
Yeah, I mean,
How can you help us understand now that we've heard what I think is the truth is, there was a rabbi who once told, I'll give you the short story. Someone once came to a rabbi, two people, and they had a discussion, and somebody heard it. The rabbi made a decision, and the person says to the rabbi, well, I think actually you sided with this person, but here's why I think this person is right. And he said, okay, you're right. And then somebody else, no, they say, well, actually, I heard it, and I think the other person's right. And he gives his reasons, and the rabbi says, well, I think you're right.
yeah.
And then somebody comes and says, actually, I think they're both wrong, and here's why. And he says, well, I think you're right too. So what I'm hearing here is everybody is making something that, first of all, is so abstract and profound, real, but you're also making it so coherent. When I first heard aspects of each one of your systems, I had a question, and through your discussions, each one is yes, yes, yes. So now, I don't know if I can be all three. Maybe that's the Trinity version of your community.
Yeah. So,
So, Sri Ganesh, help us understand from what you've heard to clarify, and then if my question is still there, I'll
yeah.
ask you that.
So I think the interesting thing is it's how it can be interpreted, right? So language itself can be interpreted. So here you have tat, tvam, asi. So tat is that, tvam is you, and asi is are. You are that. So the interpretation is, okay, who is you? What is you? The tvam itself. So in Advaitic tradition, it says that your individual consciousness is part of the universal consciousness, right? And the tvam in Vishishta Advaitam is different. It actually, tvam means you. It actually denotes that, like Krishna pointed out, that jiva, right, uh, which is present, that is actually called you, and that is actually the creator that created this whole universe, right? So there are differences, subtle differences in how that is interpreted. There are subtle differences in how tvam is interpreted, right? And then Dvaitam, it is again that you are, yes, tat, and tvam, it is, that whole thing is, will be again interpreted in a very different manner. So the whole statement of tat, tvam, asi, that tvam itself is who you are. Like Krishna said, it's a sponge that absorbs water, right? And for Advaitam, you can get examples from the Upanishads of fire burning. So when you have like this fire burning, there are all these embers and flames flying, right? Is that flame any different from the actual fire? Because it can go and merge back into the fire. Similarly, you have the sea, which is kind of like the substrate, and then you have like the individual droplets coming out of the waves and then again merging back into the sea.
Okay.
Right? At that time, the individual droplet, it's exactly same as that of the sea.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are all these different interpretations, but that is the beauty of the language, that you can still use all these Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Sutras and all that, and then still can come up with different philosophies that kind of gives you a complete closure of the philosophy. And now that also the interesting thing to note is with philosophy, we think it will answer, philosophy will be the final answer. But at the end of it, reading philosophy, you might be left with more questions also. So this is something that we all have to like experience through, experience in us, because divinity and the spirituality is a individual experience, right? It cannot be intellectually discussed. So uh, it's interesting. We can try to like explain, but this is something that is experienced. And in the same way, like Krishna also pointed out the different parts of the body, like the hand and everything, right? So now the thing is, uh, it is hand is still part of the body, brain is still part of the body, and my leg or stomach is still part of the body, but each cell might have slightly different function, but they are still all part of this body. So it is the same as the sea water, right? The ocean near the coast of UK might have a slightly different chemical composition, compared to that of the ocean in New York, right? So it's the same ocean, the same body of water. So it's like that. Each and everything might have a different function, and that depends on your karma or the tendencies that with which you are born. So that's pretty much how I would kind of like sum up this whole discussion, that language is indeed, I wouldn't say the barrier, it also gives us the freedom to interpret things differently. And as long as it can be interpreted, like Mohan said, there's a pramanam, right? There is a certain logic that we have to go by and apply all the different texts and then come up with like a unified philosophy. That is how each one of these existed. And interestingly, Hinduism is also called, it is a syncretic religion, which means there was nothing like Hinduism about 300 years back. Hinduism was a name given by the British when they came to India, because they knew Christianity, they knew uh, Islam. But when they came to India and saw all these very diverse, different spiritual, observances, they were like, "How? What do we call this?" Okay, because this is a land of the Indus, right? Let's call it Hinduism, right? And the very interesting thing is, any religious practice practiced in that subcontinent was called Hinduism. And I believe at one point of time when they called it Hinduism, even Judaism practiced in India was clubbed as Hinduism, because there were like a lot of Jews in India for trade, and they were practicing Judaism, but they were like, when the name Hinduism was coined, they were like, okay, everything that's in this subcontinent, let's just call it Hinduism, whether it's Sikhism and Buddhism, Jainism, they all got their identities much later. So that will also help us address some of these differences. But then you are talking about karma, and that's an interesting thing, because when we talk about differences, there are all these unifying things like Sanatana Dharma, karma, moksha, and all those janma and moksha. So these are all common to all the different, philosophies. So, yeah.
And we're going to, I figure when we end, we'll end with the Sanatana Dharma, which are actual names. Yes, sorry, Mac?
I'm sorry, I have to get off. I have an appointment at 7, and so I have to get to that. But thank you, everyone. I learned a lot, and was a great honor to be here. So
Thank you,
I
Mac.
I look
Thank
forward
you.
to the next. I look forward to the next time.
Mac,
Beautiful.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Shalom.
I apologize.
Shalom. There you go.
Shalom.
I
Yeah.
also have to jump off, so I apologize if other things going on. So, but I
Okay.
also very much enjoyed this, but I will try and join next month if you let me know. I will look forward
Thank
to
you,
it.
Mohan. Thank you.
It was good to see you. Take care. Krishna, we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you so
Hare
much for
Thank
being
you.
here, Mohan.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So maybe 5 more minutes. Can we
Yeah.
hang, Sherry?
That sounds
Fine.
perfect.
Yeah.
That sounds
Okay.
perfect. Mhm.
So real quick, Sri Ganesh and Krishna, listening to Tat Swam Asi, it's the that and the you. This Swam is where you seem to be differing. Not only, but could we say that the Swam, the you, for you, Krishna, is a lowercase y? The that and the you, and for you, Sri Ganesh, it's the that is the capital Y-O-U. It's the that is the action, the that and the you are the same rather than a U lowercase Y-O-U.
Again, to be very specific, I didn't say that the Supreme and the Jiva are the same in our tradition.
No, I'm saying they're not, right?
Yeah.
But
The Supreme lives inside that Jiva, right? I was telling you about that.
yes,
That Supreme is the same as, so I said that transimmanence of the Lord and the
correct.
transcendence are, yeah. So it's not, I wouldn't call it specifically a lower Y, because lower Y says, it specifies a Jiva, specifies
Yeah. It is.
as in the individual soul.
And
But this is the
but that's
Jiva
not the that.
Antaryami Brahman, right? So the Jiva Antaryami Brahman. So you have that, the Brahman still in you.
Inside me.
Yeah.
Inside me. So it's like, that's why I said, you take a sponge, put the sponge in the Jiva like the sponge, and soak water, and just think, it's not this exactly the same, but just to understand how the water pervades that sponge. Like that,
Okay.
the Supreme also pervades that living entity, the soul.
Yes.
So when I say small y, it means that sponge, it's equivalent to the sponge. When I say capital Y, it's the water which it's soaked up.
Yes. Okay.
So Tat and Tvam in this case are both capital Ys.
Okay. But they're not the same.
They are the same. That is what I'm trying to say. The definition is the capital Y inside the small y is what
Yes.
is being spoken by the Tvam.
Yes. Got it. Perfect. So to if we could for how I don't know, but you spoke of Hinduism versus then you mentioned Sri Ganesh Sanatana Dharma, which is a more, I think, representative term. Leave us with both of you. This will be your parting shot, your closing, gracing us. You're gracing us with this closing out of wisdom. The name of your faith. Tell us why the name of your faith is so central to the way of your faith, number one. Do that last. But give us a sense of if there is a difference within your two approaches to karma and to life and reincarnation. All of our texts that we're studying and talking about, the Vedas, the Upanishads, they're all here to instruct us in something, in life, and how to live. It's not just information. How do these, why are we here? Why are we incarnating or reincarnating? What is the role of karma in that? And then leave us with the meaning of your name. And if that was too long of a question, I'll repeat it when you need help.
Yeah. So there are, of course, lots of questions. And let's talk about the commonalities now, right? So Sanatana Dharma is actually the eternal law of nature, kind of loosely translate as the eternal law of nature, right?
Okay.
So irrespective of the philosophies that you follow, the way of life should be according to the eternal law of nature, right? And the actions, when you lead your life, then there are actions. I mean, you perform actions. So depending on the actions you perform, karma is nothing but the cause and the effect, right? Depending on your karma, it kind of also provides the cause for your action, but the effect of your action will be another karma. So you will keep accumulating karma based on your actions when actions are done from a selfish point of view, right? So in Advaitic philosophy, we believe that once you identify as one with the supreme or the universal consciousness, the actions that you do are done by relinquishing the doership. So you don't
relinquishing the doership.
Doership, yeah. So you don't claim or you don't take credit for your actions, and you are doing, aligning with the universal consciousness and performing actions according to your dharma. So when you do that from a selfish point of acting, it becomes a completely selfless way of actions, performing actions. And when you do actions this way, they do not accumulate karma at all. And so the next thing is, okay, what does karma bring? So karma is something that is accumulated, and when the body perishes, the karma is carried on to the next body. So that is called janma, or rebirth. So you have, based on your karma, you will have rebirth. And the goal of every Hindu is to attain moksha or liberation, which is to be one with the universal consciousness. And when by doing your actions, I will just talk about Advaita tradition, and Krishna can talk about the Vishishta Advaita tradition. So when you relinquish doership in Advaita tradition and perform your actions, you don't accumulate karma. And when you run out of your karma balance, you do not have janma or rebirth. And that is considered moksha or liberation, which is ultimately being one with the Lord.
Wow. And is that, just to clarify, the oneness with the Lord?
Or oneness with the universal consciousness.
With the universal consciousness. Yeah. Is there an awareness still that we have of our oneness with, or are we just simply the one?
That is the awareness, right? The consciousness gives you that awareness, the self-awareness.
Okay.
You will just be at that time, like you will be aware that you are one, that you have become one with the universal consciousness.
So the Maya that we spoke of in the beginning, the illusion or the ignorance, so it's not that everything, or just help me understand. Does Maya represent an understanding that everything is illusion?
So
or is there ultimately something that is true and enduring?
So it's very interesting. I'll just try to give a quick take on what Maya is. Maya is ignorance due to the ego that I am different from the universal consciousness, according to the Advaita tradition. And because of that, as human beings, we accumulate the 6 undesirable qualities. We call it kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, which means desire, anger, attachment, superiority, and then jealousy, and then greediness. So we kind of accumulate, we kind of have all that because we are selfish when we are covered with Maya, or ignorance because we think we are different from others. But at the same time, when we realize that we are part of the universal consciousness, now the same six qualities, it becomes the divine qualities. So your the greed will become charity, right? Because you want to share. The jealousy will become well-wishing, which is called Loka Kalyanam. So similarly, the superiority will be acceptance, anger will be patience, and things like that. So the same qualities will transform, and those are all the divine qualities which are selfless. So when actions are performed from that perspective, you do not accumulate karma.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know how you just explained all that in that time. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Krishna, you'll leave us with a brief understanding of karma, reincarnation, and I'm assuming that Sanata Dharma is going to be pretty similar to what
Right.
Sri Ganesh said.
So, as far as what he explained about the term karma is basically the same. Your action and the fruit of action. Both of these are called karma. So you accumulate this in one lifetime, or you can accumulate this over multiple lifetimes. And karma is one of the important cause for our birth. That is, we go through various life forms. As I was just explaining previously, you can be in a body of a bacteria in one life. 100 lives later, you can be in a human body. So it's a sort of a spiritual evolution which the soul has gone through in this creation, in this creative cycle. And one thing he said, giving up the sense of doership. We have a slight different take on that, is that we don't give up the sense of doership not from the perspective that the jiva is not doing, but we transform that into this idea that whatever we do is done for the sake of service. So you were asking how this term, whatever Visishta Advaita or Advaita, how does it help us understand, what does it do in our daily life?
Yeah.
It is for us to understand that we are a part of God's creation within that definition, and that we are eternally associated with God. So, and our relationship with God is this sense of servitude is within that this thing. We are subservient to God, and whatever we do, we learn over once we understand that we as an individual spark is subservient to the Lord. Our teachers stress upon the idea that anything and everything you do should be done with the goal of offering it back to the Lord. That is the sense of service. Suppose, just a random example, if you are visiting my home, I cook a lot of different things and I offer it to you. I don't think that I'm going to get any benefit out of doing that to you. But the inherent nature in me of servitude should propel me to say, hey, Joe is here. Let me do something for him. So the teachers are of the South Indian tradition, the Vaishnava tradition. They say that in the school of Visishtadvaita, that this should transform you into the sense of service, or whatever you do as service, that should transform you into a better being, better human being, or better soul that takes you forward in that path of understanding our relationship with the eternal. When I say that I am a servant of the Lord, I really don't know in what way Lord wants me to serve him. So it's a lifelong process in trying to understand that relationship and how I can reciprocate that relationship to the Lord.
Wow.
Not that he needs anything, he has everything,
Right.
but this is my way of associating that he doesn't need anything, but like a lover gives everything to his beloved, like that we give everything to the Lord. That is the fundamental idea which drives us in our life, to say that, hey, are we going to become a better soul in understanding the relationship between me and him? And me and the rest of the world. So that is
Thank you for what you've given to us today. And maybe you could just leave us we started with beautiful song and chant. Maybe you could leave us, Krishna, and you can fade out into wherever we're ending up.
So
Well,
as
you'll
Mohan
lead
told
us
you,
with a song.
Mohan told about this the Tamil Veda, right?
Yeah.
We have the Sanskrit Veda and the Tamil Veda, and you heard Sri Ram recite a mantra it's a Shanti mantra from the Upanishads. I will recite something from the Divya Prabandham to end this, so that that verse kind of embodies the sense of what I just explained, the sense of understanding our nature and understanding nature of God, and uh, understanding our subservience and leading a life of servitude from that.
Beautiful.
So I gave the meaning before I went through the verse, but the verse is very dear to me. I recite it every day. It's a part of my daily prayers. It's from a text called Tirupavai. Tirupavai is a set of 30 verses, which it's an allegory between. It's about a cowherd girl who's fallen in love with Krishna, and how she expresses her love for Krishna in 30 verses. And one of them, the fifth verse, is very dear to me, and I'm going to present that to you. மாயனை மன்னு வடமதுரை மைந்தனை தூயப் பெருநீர் யமுனைத் துறைவனை ஆயர்குலத்தினில் தோன்றும் அணிவிளக்கை தாயைக் குடல் விளக்கம் செய்த தாமோதரனை தூயோமாய் வந்து நாம் தூமலர் தூவித் தொழுது வாயினால் பாடி மனத்தினால் சிந்திக்க போய பிழையும் புகுதருவான் நின்றனவும் தீயினில் தூசாகும் செப்பேலோரெம்பாவாய்.
Thank you. Thank you all. I look forward to more. We have to do more with all of you. There's too much that we don't know about your beautiful wisdom and your faith. Thank you all for sticking around. I will take lashes for going a little beyond willingly. And thank you all for everything, really. Thanks for giving us this opportunity, Neil and Sherry. Thanks for joining us. Sri Ram and Sri Ganesh and Krishna and Mohan and Mac and all of you. Really, we'll see you again. I guess not next month. We'll see you for Passover, some of you. And we'll do this again in May. And from England, I say, cheerio. I don't know what they say here.
They
but
say happy birthday. Go find your birthday burrito or whatever you're gonna
That's
find.
right. I'm going out at what time is it?
It's
Oh my
almost gonna
goodness.
close.
It's 3:00. They're closing in an hour, 3 a.m.
I
Yes.
know. No, I really
So-
want to thank you all.
Yes.
Krishna, Sri Ganesh, thank you so much for being with us. It was really, really great to learn.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Oh, it was brilliant. Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Shalom, everybody. Thank you all for